this point in time, I'd like to call this meeting of the Middlesex County Board of Chosen Freeholders to order. Please rise for a moment of silence. Dennis, salute to the flag, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Notice of this meeting pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act, NJSA 10:4-10, has been complied with and shall be entered into the minutes of this meeting.
Roll call, Market, please.
Freeholder Barrett Belante.
Here.
Freeholder Delina.
Here.
Freeholder Polos. Freeholder Rios. Freeholder Tamaro.
Here.
Freeholder Valenti. Freeholder Director Rafano.
Here. Proclamations.
We have one this evening recognizing May as Mental Health Awareness Month in Middlesex County.
Commemorative resolutions.
There are a few. The first is recognizing Trinity Episcopal Church in Woodbridge on the occasion of the 150th anniversary of the consecration of the church building, and also recognizing Reverend Robert Councilman as he celebrates 30 years of service as rector at Trinity Episcopal Church. Next is recognizing Reverend Dennis Wieserak of St. Mary's Parish in South Amboy on the 25th anniversary of his ordination to the priesthood. Next is recognizing the YMCA of Metuchen, Edison, Woodbridge, and South Amboy as they celebrate 90 years of community service. Also recognized our former South Amboy Mayor, John O'Leary, as he receives the Peter J. Barnes Community Champion Award, and Gary Ostermuller as he receives the Charles Edgar Award. And last is recognizing Joel Gottlieb of the Township of Edison on the occasion of his retirement.
I need a motion to adopt the resolutions.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Freeholder Tamaro, seconded by Freeholder Barrett Belante. Roll call.
Freeholder Barrett Belante.
Yes.
Freeholder Delina.
Yes.
Freeholder Polos.
Yes.
Freeholder Tamaro.
Yes.
Freeholder Director Rafano.
Yes. Freeholder? Time to make your presentation.
Yes. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Whereas the United States Surgeon General has reported that nearly 30% of the United States population has a mental health disorder, substance abuse disorder, or both, and whereas mental health challenges are as treatable as many physical illnesses and recovery is always possible, and for more than 50 years, the National Mental Health Association has declared each May Mental Health Awareness Month. Whereas children and youth with mental health challenges and their families need access to services and supports that are family-driven, youth-guided, and culturally appropriate, and whereas the Middlesex County Mental Health Board meets monthly to improve the quality of life for residents of Middlesex County through monitoring, planning for a comprehensive, integrated, community-based system of mental health services accessible to all residents of the county. And whereas Middlesex County is one of the only 2 counties in the state to provide both funding and accessible community services through the county's Raritan Bay Mental Health Center. Now, therefore, I, Christopher D. Rafano, Director of the Board of Chosen Freeholders, do proclaim that May 2011 as the Mental Health Awareness Month in Middlesex County. Thank you.
Okay, I just want to say a few words. Hopefully I won't be too long. I've never done this before.
I want to thank you all, the Freeholders, for caring about the mentally ill in Middlesex County. Thank you especially to Blanquita Belanti, because she's been at our board meetings. I've met her, and I know that she has a special interest in the mental health field. And I want to thank also all the people I've come in contact with on the County Mental Health Board and people who have presented at the Mental Health Board. I've found that of any field, I think the most dedicated seem to have landed in the mental health field, which is a great relief to me, since I have a very personal interest in that. When you're a parent of someone with a mental illness, you see everything through the prism of mental illness. I have other children, but the one who's mentally ill is the one that gets more mental attention than the rest. It's just the way it is. But unfortunately for the mentally ill, probably because of the stigma and the ignorance, many of those who are touched by it don't want to draw attention to it, don't want to talk about it. That's not me. I believe that being upfront and open about mental illness is the way to fight stigma, and hiding it is the way to promote stigma. So I'm going to give you my take as someone who, I like to say, was descended from a long line of schizophrenics, on how the Middlesex County Freeholder committees impact the mentally ill, or could impact the mentally ill. And on my way here, I just came from walking with my son who has schizophrenia, and we take walks a couple of times a week just so that I can touch base with him, see how he's doing. He's not living at home. And while I was coming back, I said, I have to include him in this. You know, I was going to do kind of a dry thing about each of the committees, but I really have to include him. And I'm going to point out to you how each of your committees potentially impacts him or does impact him as a mentally ill person living in Middlesex County. Now, first and most obvious is the Human Services and Senior Services Committee, headed by Ms. Valenti. Of course, this is the committee that's directly concerned with mental health issues. It supports the Raritan Bay Mental Health Center, which my son has never experienced, but I've heard only good things about. And the other thing I wanted to mention that I came across in my research, because to tell you the truth, I didn't quite know what Freeholders, everything that they do. I came across the fact that you have a homelessness program that's just newly started, newly funded. And my son, though not homeless now, certainly, potentially, will be homeless in the future. There's, a realistic possibility of him being homeless. And something like that is something that he may need in the future. That may be necessary. The next committee I want to mention is the Public Works and Transportation Committee, headed by Mr. Polos. My son has not driven for 8 years. He used to drive. He has a license, but he does not drive, and he has not driven for 8 years. The transportation is very important to him. If he can't get somewhere, he doesn't get somewhere. I mean, if he can't get somewhere by public transportation. So the addition of the shuttle to South Amboy, Sayreville, that's very important. I should just also mention that I kind of coordinate a social group for the mentally ill, and I know there's a number of people from South Amboy and Sayreville who could not come to our activities because of the transportation issue. So everything that's added to that is going to positively help people with mental illness. And it's important when planning, and I have a feeling that you do this, when planning, take into account where there are large groups of people with mental illness. There's places where kind of group homes cluster. So those are the places that, specific, that we know have a big need, just because, from my experience, I think maybe 10% of the people I know who are mentally ill can have a car or have access to a car. Most of them do not. It's just the reality. The Public Health and Education Committee, headed by Ms. Belanti. I was looking for you. Sorry. I understand that there are now scholarships to county colleges. Yes. Very important. The people I run into in the social group, many of them, of course, had their education interrupted. They've had their employment interrupted. A lot of them are long-term unemployed. So anything that would help them be able to go to school is going to help them. Is going to help the mentally ill. The other thing, and I don't know if this is the kind of thing the Freeholders do, is the opportunities to educate the public in a meaningful way about mental illness. I think we can never have too much education about it, because I'm always shocked by the level of ignorance in the public about mental illness, even among people who have it in their families. It's amazing. The other thing I wanted to mention about the public health and education is that, and I don't know, again, whether this would be in a freeholder committee or which committee, but in my opinion, the biggest public health and public safety problem with the mentally ill is the fact that when people do not take their medication, they are potentially a public safety problem. And there is no mechanism in place now to make sure people get their medication. My son does not take his medication. I realistically know that at some point that may become a major problem. It would be an incredible relief to me as a parent of someone with mental illness to know that there is a system in place that will help him get the medication he needs. I don't know what form it would take. I'm just throwing it out there as a major issue. But it is a major issue, and it's probably the most important issue, in my opinion. The Law and Public Safety Committee, headed by Mr. Rios. Of course, the crisis of overpopulation of the mentally ill in the criminal justice system is a problem that's becoming more and more known to the public and to everyone, really. And that needs any kind of addressing it can, because a lot of those people do not belong in the typical track of the criminal justice system. The other thing is there's got to be a way to educate the people in those systems to mental illness and the mentally ill and how to deal with them. My son was arrested at one point for something really that he was really blameless, but he was arrested, and if he had run when they stopped him, he would have been shot. And the issue was totally, it was laughable. It was not something that he had a responsibility for. So people have to know, how to approach someone who looks odd. I mean, the reason they stopped him was because he looked odd, and then found that there was something about an abandoned car. That was the issue. But if he had bolted, it would have been, a very sad situation for us. So teaching the people in the system, I think, would go a long way towards helping the mentally ill. The Administrative and Finance Committee, headed by Mr. Rufano, any savings that can be found in the system that would potentially free up money for the mental health system is, of course, wonderful. And that's really, the prime advantage to that whole committee, I would think. The Parks and Recreation Committee, I have to say that today, specifically, I realized just how important those parks are to us. I mean, my son, he generally will not come home to dinner. He generally will not go out to eat with us, and this is as he's getting sicker. But he will take walks with me, and we use those parks every week. So, pardon me for getting a little choked up. The Engineering and Planning Committee and the Parks and Recreation Committee, really, headed by Mr. Delino or Mr. Tomorrow, benefit the mentally ill just like everybody else. All of us are benefiting. Actually, all of us are benefiting from all the committees. But those two, there's really nothing except for what I said about the parks, the personal advantage to me. Those things the mentally ill just get as much out of as everybody else. Well, thank you for indulging me and listening to my comments. And I know your hearts are in the right places. And what else can I say?
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
I promise that we'll set up a meeting either jointly or individually on some of these issues, and if there's some way that we can help you and the rest of the... Okay.
We need to deviate from the regular order of business to consider 2 resolutions, to present checks, and introduce 3 ordinances. At this point in time, I would ask the board to consider resolution number 11-743, which is the open space grant to Plainsboro for the construction of the Plainsboro Community Recreation Center. At this point in time, I open to the public resolution number 11-743 only. Anyone from the public?
Motion to close the public portion?
Second.
Motion by Freeholder Tomorrow, seconded by Freeholder Barrett Belmonte. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. I need a motion to adopt resolution number 11-743.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Freeholder Tomorrow, seconded by Freeholder Barrett Belmonte. Roll call.
Freeholder Barrett Belante.
Yes.
Freeholder Delina.
Yes.
Freeholder Polos.
Yes.
Freeholder Tamaro.
Yes.
Freeholder Director Rafano.
Yes. At this point in time, I call upon Freeholder Barrett Belante to make a presentation.
Okay. Nothing I like better than give out these checks. You like it too?
I'm sure you do. Mayor, why don't you join her with the two council people that are here and introduce them?
First of all, I am excited to announce these two projects that our local towns are undertaking that will enhance the recreation facilities for our residents. Each of these towns applied for open space grant funds to help them reach their goals. And as you know, it is a freeholder's policy to award up to $500,000 a year to individual municipalities for municipal recreation projects. Tonight, we're very honored to have Plainsboro, and later we'll have Old Bridge here. And I believe that this is the check that you've been waiting.
Absolutely.
Is it?
That's right.
Do I have to give it to you?
I don't know. We have a camera to take the picture.
I think we do.
Let me
And this
introduce
is,
let me introduce
please,
the people.
please
that are with me
introduce everyone.
I'm joined today by Committeeman Noura Nabi and Committeeman Mike Weaver. Mike is the liaison for Public Works and has responsibility for buildings and parks, and Noura has responsibility for recreation in Plainsboro as liaison for that department. I want to, first of all, thank you, the Freeholder Board, the entire Freeholder Board, for their support. This project is very important to us. This will provide money for the conversion of our former library building. As some of you know, we have a brand new facility which we're very proud of in Plainsboro. And one of the benefits of that is the former library building is being converted for use as a recreational facility. So the project is going forward as we speak. We anticipate having the bids in within the next 6 weeks, and the project underway and completed hopefully this year or early next year. It will provide it's a $4.5 million project, of which this will make a major contribution toward the recreational components of that building and to serve the growing needs within Plainsboro Township. So I express appreciation to all of you for your support and effort, to Ralph Albiner, who we've worked with closely in developing the request, and to our engineer, Dave Samuels, here tonight, so we thank them as well. So we appreciate your continued support for Plainsboro. Thank you, folks. Okay, thank you very much. Again, Freeholder, thank you very much. Good to see you. Thank you. Thank you for accelerating your agenda for us.
Should I stay?
You're welcome.
I might as well stay here.
Just stay right there, Freeholder.
I'll vote from here, okay.
Okay, at this point in time, I'd ask the Board to consider Resolution Number 11-744, which is an open space grant to Old Bridge for improvements to various municipal parks. Open it up to the public on Resolution Number 11-744. Anyone from the public?
Hearing no comment from the public, I will move to close the public portion.
We have a motion?
Second.
Okay, motion by Freeholder Tamara, second by Freeholder Barrett Belante. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Need a motion to adopt Resolution Number 11-744.
Motion to adopt, 744.
Second.
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 Motion by Freeholder Tamara, seconded by Freeholder Barrett Belante. Roll call.
Freeholder Barrett Belante.
Yes.
Freeholder Delina.
Yes.
Freeholder Polos.
Yes.
Freeholder Tamaro.
Yes.
Freeholder Director Rafano.
Yes. Freeholder, you're on.
Now we'll turn to Old Bridge, and we're happy to hear the council president, my good friend, Kevin Caligera. And I'm going to let you say what this money is all about, because it's your baby.
Well,
Our money.
First of all, let me just say that I'd like to thank the Board of Freeholders. We have, over the years, really enjoyed a great cooperative effort with them, and our Township Council is very grateful. And this money is going towards our projects in our recreation program, which you've been so helpful with, not only now, but over the past 8 years. Over the past 8 years especially, we've achieved so many things because of the joint effort and the support from the freeholders, including right now, we have the Cottrell Farm, which we're taking as open space. We have the YMCA, we have the pool, we've had a number of different projects, and I would be remiss if I didn't bring up the name of Jim Phillips, who was our mayor, and I think during that period of time, Jim is leaving a legacy behind him, which both the Freeholder Board and Township Council can be proud of. So on behalf, as mayor, acting mayor of Old Bridge, on behalf of the people of Old Bridge, we'd like to thank you very much. We look forward to that continued relationship that we have with you, and we look forward to just continuing the partnership into the future. And Carol, thank you. And one other thing, ladies and gentlemen, anytime you have money, call, we'll be here. It's one other thing I'd like to thank Ralph Albanier also. He's really a cog that makes everything move. Thanks, Ralph.
Thank you. Now on to ordinance number 11-393. Margaret?
Bond ordinance providing for various 2011 capital improvements by and in the County of Middlesex, State of New Jersey, appropriating $50,987,017 therefore, and authorizing $48,559,034 bonds or notes of the county to finance part of the cost thereof, and authorizing the public hearing to be held on Thursday, May 19, 2011 at 7 p.m. and publication thereof.
Need a motion to adopt ordinance number 11-393 on first reading.
I make a motion to adopt the ordinance 1193 for first reading.
Second.
Motion by Freeholder Tamara, seconded by Freeholder Barrett Belmonte. Roll call.
Freeholder Barrett Belmonte.
Yes.
Freeholder Delina. Yep. Freeholder Polos.
Yes.
Freeholder Tamaro.
Yes.
Freeholder Director Rafano.
Yes. Next is ordinance number 11-394. Madam Clerk, by title only, please.
Bond ordinance providing for the acquisition of capital equipment and the undertaking of various 2011 capital improvements at and for facilities of Middlesex County College, excuse me, located within the County of Middlesex, State of New Jersey, the county, appropriating $2 million therefore, and authorizing the issuance of $2 million bonds or notes of the county for financing such appropriation, and authorizing the public hearing to be held on Thursday, May 19, 2011 at 7 p.m. and publication thereof.
Need a motion to adopt ordinance number 11-394 on first reading.
I motion to adopt ordinance 11-394 for first reading.
Second.
Motion by Freeholder Tamaro, seconded by Freeholder Barrett Belmonte. Roll call, please.
Freeholder Barrett Belmonte.
Yes.
Freeholder Delina. Yep. Freeholder Polos.
Yes.
Freeholder Tamaro.
Yes.
Freeholder Director Rafano.
Yes. Now, ordinance number 11-395. Madam Clerk, title only.
Bond ordinance providing for 2011 general capital improvements and the acquisition of equipment for the Middlesex County Vocational and Technical High Schools located within the County of Middlesex, State of New Jersey, appropriating $3,100,000 therefore, and authorizing the issuance of $3,100,000 bonds or notes of the County of Middlesex, State of New Jersey for financing such appropriation, and authorizing the public hearing to be held Thursday, May 19, 2011 at 7 p.m., and authorizing publication thereof.
I need a motion to adopt ordinance number 11-395 on first reading.
I make a motion to adopt ordinance 11-395 on first reading.
Second.
Motion by Freeholder Tamaro, seconded by Freeholder Barrett Belmonte. Roll call.
Freeholder Barrett Belmonte.
Yes.
Freeholder Delina. Yep. Freeholder Polos.
Yes.
Freeholder Tamaro.
Yes.
Freeholder Director Rafano.
Yes. I need a motion to resume the regular order of business.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Freeholder Tamaro, seconded by Freeholder Barrett Belmonte. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Ayes have it. Correspondence.
Each freeholder has been provided with a list of correspondence received by the clerk's office since our last meeting. This correspondence will be kept on file in the office of the clerk of the board for reference.
I need a motion to accept the correspondence.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Freeholder Tamaro, seconded by Freeholder Barrett Belmonte. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Ayes have it. A motion to adopt the minutes of the March 24th and April 7th freeholders meetings.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Freeholder Barrett Belmonte, seconded by Freeholder Tamara. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Ayes have it. Reports of freeholders. Freeholder Carol Barrett Belmonte.
Thank you, Director. It's so good to be back. Starting out at Middlesex County College on March 29th, a formal agreement was signed with Kane University to allow nursing students who have achieved their associate degree to continue their education for a Bachelor of Science in Nursing on the campus of Middlesex County College. The program will be open not only to our graduates, but to all nurses in the area looking to upgrade their skills and credentials and earn a BSN degree. A new associate's degree in surveying has been added to the college offerings. This degree, which was originally an option in the civil engineering program, has been expanded due to the demand for the land surveyors. The U.S. Department of Labor Statistics indicates that the demand is expected to grow faster than average of all occupations with median salaries in the mid-50s per year range. The program includes courses in mathematics, technical graphics, water resources, technology, physics, business, and boundary law. Also, 3 students from the Academy of Science, Mathematics and Engineering Technology School in Edison participated in the 8th annual NJIT High School Programming Contest in March, winning second place honors for the second consecutive year. The contest brought more than 50 teams from high schools throughout the county to NJIT's campus. Out in the public health department during an April 28th exercise, the Middlesex County Public Health Department and the New Jersey Department of Health and Senior Services worked together to manage and distribute life-saving medication and supplies to county and state residents during a mock emergency event. About 50 individuals from federal, state, and county agencies and departments participated, and Middlesex County became the first and only county to partner with the state to receive federal assets during a public health emergency. We are honored that the state chose our county, and the department would like to thank the Middlesex County Office of Emergency Management and the Middlesex County Prosecutor's Office and staff who worked with the medication reception site for their contributions during this successful exercise. Every year, National Nurses Week focuses attention on the diverse ways that Americans' 3.1 million registered nurses work to save lives and to improve the health of millions of individuals. This year, the American Nurses Association has selected Nurses Trusted to Care as the theme of National Nurses Week, which begins May 6th and ends May 12th, the birthday of Florence Nightingale, founder of nursing, this modern profession. And I'd like to take this time to recognize all the devoted nurses in our county health department that work so very hard to improve the health of our residents through programs as childhood immunization, tuberculosis control, investigations of communicable disease, adult health, and cancer screening. It's wonderful what these nurses do, and we thank you from the bottom of our heart for all of your dedication. And in the Middlesex County Environmental Health Division, water pollution program they'll be participating in the New Jersey DEP Summer 2011 Stream Bacterial Monitoring Program. The New Jersey Department of DEP will assign 5 predetermined sampling areas, and samples will be collected at these 5 sites within Middlesex County and analyzed. Well, I can't really say this. Tell me what this word is, Mickey Gross. Some kind of coli.
Should be E. coli, Freeholder, I think. That's what you have in front of you.
Well, no, I have something after the E. It would have made it easier if you had just said E. coli. So I'm going to have to yell at you for that one. But no, so I'll start over. Analyzing E. coli. The project will begin May 4th and continue through June 1st. Thank you. Thanks for being a sport.
Thank you, Freeholder. Freeholder Stephen J. Pete Delina.
Thank you, Director. First, I would like to report to the board that on Wednesday, April 27th, a groundbreaking ceremony was held for the redemption and construction of a new improved Medwick Park in the borough of Carteret, with a project completion date to be spring of 2012. The eastern part of the park at Post Boulevard entrance will keep the existing Little League fields, 2 picnic areas, an exercise trail, and a comfort station. It would also include improvement to the parking area, the construction of a multi-purpose use field, landscaping, and an observation deck overseeing the natural area. The western part of Pauline Street entrance will have a new synthetic soccer, football field, and a synthetic Little League field, and a multi-purpose field improved. Tennis courts, a playground, a new comfort station, and a parking area. 2 sections of the park are connected by bikeways and walkways. I am certain that the residents of Carteret and surrounding communities will enjoy the great recreation facilities. On the other subject, I would like to advise the board and the public that Middlesex County Conservation Corps and interest volunteers will be busy working on the Jamesburg Conservation Area in East Brunswick on Saturday, May 14th from 9:30 a.m. to noon. In an effort to clean up the unique site, which has been called the Pine Barrens of Middlesex County, full of harmful invasive plants removed by help preserved by the beautification of open space. Anybody interested in this participating event would like to further information for the Middlesex County Conservation Corps, call Valerie Leon at 732-745-3064. Thank you.
Thank you, Freeholder. Freeholder H. James Paulos.
Thank you, Director. Director, before I get into my report, I guess a question to County Council. Tom, the add-ons that are on for tonight, what's the procedure? Because we had a little issue a couple meetings ago with Robert's Rules. How do we discuss these add-ons? Is there an appropriate time? I don't want to be cut off this time if I want to make a comment about something.
Well, the first, at the point in time where we reach when something is to be added on, the motion that would be appropriate would be a motion and a second discussion to add it on to the consent agenda, and then a vote. Once it's on, and that's only a motion and vote to add it to the consent agenda. It's appropriate to have a discussion then if the determination or the debate is whether to add it to the consent agenda. Once it's on the consent agenda by a majority vote, once again, when the consent agenda is read for discussion, a freeholder wishing to have a further discussion on a resolution can pull it off, as we do when there's conflict circumstances, and have a discussion at that time. So the first action is to add it to the consent agenda. The second action is actually to move and adopt that resolution as part of the consent agenda.
Okay. Director, when are we going to be discussing this? I know that I see Dave and Tony are here, so is there a schedule for that?
Yeah, when we get through freeholder reports and we get to resolutions to be added.
Oh, okay, so that's the appropriate time?
You have that right here?
He just handed it to me,
Okay.
yes. I just want to make sure we're going to be talking about it at the right time. That's great. I'll talk about it then.
Okay.
So I'll bypass that for now. A couple things to report on. The School Training and Response Team, which is our county's initiative to create safer schools, which is building upon our Middlesex County Task Force on School Violence, which has been in existence for the last 9 years, is moving ahead very smoothly with a new initiative for ICS training. The committee is actually writing the course. This is the first time that there'll be a specific, there is an educational component out there for ICS, but we're actually going to take it and redraft it to tailor it to the needs of this particular initiative. We're very excited with the participation that we have of school principals and mental health professionals, superintendents, teachers, custodians, school nurses who are participating to develop this initiative initiative and make our schools safer, better prepared in the event of any type of an emergency or tragedy. Over the past week, many of you have probably read that many communities have been holding Holocaust memorial ceremonies. I attended one the other night in Edison, and very well attended, I might add, and had an opportunity to speak to a very large group. And it was a very touching moment. It was a candle lighting ceremony. It was an interfaith clergy memorial service. And I couldn't help but remember a trip that I took a number of years ago when I was mayor of Highland Park. I had the honor of being asked by the rabbis from my community to go to the International Conference of Mayors in Jerusalem. And at that time, met with Mayor Ted Kollek. Some of you might remember he was a very well-known mayor of Jerusalem for many, many years. And Itzhak Rabin and Shimon Peres. So it was a very interesting, once-in-a-lifetime type of an opportunity, but I also had the opportunity that day to, during my trip, to spend the better part of the day at Yad Vashem, which is the Holocaust Memorial in Jerusalem. And you go into the memorial curious about what it presents and the information that's in there, knowing what you know about the Holocaust, what you've read, what you've been taught, what you've seen on TV. So you kind of walk into the memorial curious, but you walk out a changed person. It is a very life-changing moment to see firsthand, to touch and feel and understand exactly what the Holocaust was all about. At one point during the tour of the memorial, you walk into at that time you walked into a candle room. There was a single candle in the middle of the room, and if you could just close your eyes and imagine this for a moment, and a series of very intricate prisms that circulated around the room, and the one candle was able to reflect into millions of flickering candles representing all of those who had been lost in the Holocaust. Up on the wall, there was a poem that I don't think I'll ever forget, and the essence of it was written by a very famous poet. His last name is Mahler, and the essence of it was, "They came for the Jews, and I did nothing. They came for the trade unionists, and I did nothing. And then they came for me, and there was no one left." The message is very clear that Holocaust memorials that we do today need to continue. We need to always remember what that was about, what a chilling and horrible moment it was in our history, to ensure that we don't allow it to happen again. So I credit all those who have had these memorials this past week. We need to continue to make sure that those are loud and clear, because we cannot forget, and we cannot allow it to just be a part of history. It has to be a part of today's history as well. Yesterday we had a wonderful ceremony at the corner of Livingston and New Street in the rain. We were able to bring a tent out, luckily. The mayor of New Brunswick attended with the police director. Edison, the mayor of Edison was there with Deputy Chief Vaticano, state officials from Highway Traffic Safety, and we unveiled our new traffic safety signboard, which is situated on a trailer that was paid for by the Highway Traffic Safety Administration. Particularly proud of the sign. It is a large sandwich board, billboard sign, if you will, that sits on this trailer, reflective material, and on it very clearly states that you need to stop for pedestrians and crosswalks, and it clearly identifies what the penalties are, the points that go onto your license, insurance surcharges if you don't, also educates pedestrians to cross safely. It's a very visible sign, but I'm particularly proud of it because I want to thank Dave Campion and the road department and our sign crew, who actually did the construction of it and the design of it, and it is a very, very significant piece of traffic safety material that will be used by the police departments. New Brunswick was very excited to have it. George Vavridis was there as well and said a few remarks. And Edison Township, Freeholder Tamara, will be the next recipient of the trailer. They'll be picking it up in 2 weeks and utilizing it in their community. We're making the trailer available to any town that would like to use it. We'll be rotating it throughout the county. It's a great shared service initiative because we're paying for one trailer with a state grant and allowing municipalities to use it. I suspect that if it's highly successful, we could always look at trying to create another one at some time in the future. But the police departments in the county are very excited about having that opportunity. Also received some very, very good news today from my road director, and I want to thank him in particular. I want to thank Dave Campion. I want to thank Bonnie in the road department and public properties, I should say, and Dave Renda. Freeholders, you may remember that we had a very vicious winter storm back in December, and as a result of that, there was a state of emergency that was declared, and as a result of that, we became eligible for FEMA funding. The team in our department, road department, did an excellent job in identifying all the costs relating to that snowstorm, put together very detailed reports. You could only imagine what the report must be like to send to the federal government to ask for money. I mean, you could just, right, we can only imagine what that detail must have been. Well, however they did it, and they did it with a lot of class and detail, we received notice today that combined between our road department costs and Parks Department, Ralph, which you'll be happy to hear, we're going to be receiving $550,000 from the federal government as reimbursement for the costs of that storm. So I think that's a significant amount of cash at a very necessary time. I think Dave and his department deserves a round of applause. Excellent job. And in closing, I just would like to make one comment. I want to thank and just honor in any way that we can, perhaps just with words tonight and perhaps with other deeds in the future, the men and women of our military who carried out that attack in Islamabad and were able to finally neutralize a person who, I don't care what you think about the man, there's no way that you can describe him other than being a very despicable, heartless, ruthless killer who ruined thousands of families in this country and thousands of families around the world. I get a little bit disturbed when I watch TV. I try not to watch too many of these channels, but people are talking about, well, what was he doing and what did he say, and was his left hand up and was his right hand down, and how did you do it on the ship? You know, the bottom line is this man was a killer. That's all that he intended to do. We were his target, and we're at war with him. And that's the way that we need to keep it in that context. And I'm so proud of our military forces for the way they carried out that raid and the fact that they finally have brought closure for some of the families. Luckily, I wasn't personally affected, although I think I had told you a long time ago that the church that my grandparents built was destroyed. The church that I was married at, the church that my daughter was baptized in. Luckily, it wasn't family or a human being. It was just a facility. But a lot of people were affected by that attack, and I believe, and I think many others do, he got what he deserved, and the military should be complimented. We should stop talking about all the minor details of what occurred. Enemies that come against our nation need to understand that we're going to fight back, and we're going to fight back harder. So my compliments to all of them. I'll save my compliments about the solar for a little later. Thank you, Director.
Thank you, Freeholder. Freeholder Charlie Tamaro.
Thank you, Director. Just one thing I'd like to comment on this evening. Last Friday, Chris and I did a spotlight on Middlesex County, and during the interview, we spoke about a program that the state of New Jersey implemented in 1997, and it's called UST, Underground Storage Tank Remediation Program. And what this program provides for people throughout the state of New Jersey to remediate your underground storage tanks, your oil tanks. I found out yesterday the fund is out of money. And it is a fund that's supported by taxes. So I was told that they're stopping giving out any new monies until the fund can regenerate itself, and they're still accepting applications. So if you watch the program and you listen to what I said, it is a great program that was actually a voter referendum supported by the voters. So actually no governor, no legislator can ever take it away unless it goes back to the voters and the voters vote against it. But it is a fund that remediates underground storage tanks. And what does the fund provide? It provides for the paying of the contractor to remove your oil tank, and if the soils are contaminated, it also pays for the soil contamination cleanup for homeowners. So it's a great program. I just want to let the residents of Middlesex County, when they see that coming up pretty soon this month, that you still can apply and fill out the application. And even the application takes a long time to fill out, and not so much fill out, but to have it approved, sometimes 6 months to a year. So you can still fill out the application, and eventually the money will come available again. And that's all I have to say this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Freeholder. As my report this evening, I'm going to call upon our Business Administrator, John Palomino. There's a lot of discussion this past Monday, when we were talking about our solar project over at Apple Orchard, and a concern as to would the solar panel fields have an impact or affect our ability to expand by building additional county buildings to occupy those offices that are currently leased. So I've asked our administrator to give us a current status of those buildings that are owned, those that are leased by us, and do we have enough space if we proceed with that project for expansion of the county government buildings.
Thank you, Freehold Director. And as I get into it, again, the intent is to potentially make sure the board is aware of what our current footprint is relative to our real estate holdings, and then more importantly, moving forward, some of the options that we have as well. What I will say, too, is working with Clete Angin from our CIO department, one of the things we're doing as part of our overall planning for our real estate holdings is in the process of utilizing the GIS technology that will allow us to provide to you on an ongoing basis not only a numerical view but also a visual view of all of the assets that we either own or lease. And it's really a tool that we're trying to implement throughout the county, and it becomes a valuable tool on how we manage county business, but also it's a good information base for both the freeholders, obviously, in their policy decision making as well as the residents. That being said, when you look at our total county employee base, we have approximately 1,927 active employees. When you look at those facilities that we own today, approximately 1,476 employees reside in those facilities, or about 75% of our workforce. And you'll see the facilities that we're talking about. Again, this is all in summary. There are details behind it that at any point in time, if you need, more than willing to provide to you. But I wanted to give you the perspective of the owned facilities. 75% of about 1,400 employees reside in them. When you look at our lease facilities, it amounts to about 451 employees. Now, keep in mind, in some cases, some of those facilities that exist today are strategically located throughout the county for the purposes of serving the community, as opposed to those things that really it's arbitrary where they potentially reside. When you break it down from a square footage standpoint, the total amount of lease space that we are responsible for today is 213,000 approximately square feet of space. We further break it down to two components: space that are really occupied by county employees, which is 130,137, and that which is designated what we call as required space, or 83,821 square feet. That 83,000 square feet that I talk about there is really those square feet that we work with our courts and with the state and federal agencies where we're required to provide facilities for those locations. They are not county employees, but we are responsible for the lease holdings. The other thing you need to know about that designated required space as well is in many cases, like with the courts, they really require it to be within New Brunswick. They want it in close proximity to the courts. So what we're really dealing with is approximately 130,137 square feet of total space, which is 93,906 is office space, and 36,231 is warehouse space. That information is pertinent so that when you're looking at the opportunities of the available space on Apple Orchard, that if you make the assumption under a worst-case scenario, in order to occupy the additional 451 employees in one location, you would approximately need 5 acres of additional land to do that, assuming it's a one-story building. And realistically, it's probably between 5 and 7, 5 and 8 acres. That's a one-story building. If indeed there was the intent or the decision made by the board to move those employees over to Apple Orchard, likely be more than a multi-story building, so the 5 acres, I believe, is a conservative estimate. Now, the remaining property that's available on Apple Orchard, obviously, if you look at the layout of it, it's predominantly right off of Route 130, which is prime property, and I know many of the freeholders have had this discussion as far as the availability and how we would best utilize that property. And I think there's a number of options that are available to the board as we move forward in our continuing efforts to master plan our real estate holdings, is to look at a couple things. One, obviously, you could always look to sell that property, which I wouldn't recommend. Discussions have been had relative to basically building facilities either for our own use or potentially as rental income, which would allow us to have recurring revenue to feed our portfolio. The other option, quite honestly, too, that's available to Middlesex County is the fact that, you know, we tried to have our main operations out of New Brunswick, you know, the hub city. And so there is always that potential that potentially if there's property within New Brunswick or in other strategic areas that we're looking to acquire, there's a potential maybe swapping some property as it relates to that piece of property at Apple Orchard fronting 130. Those are just some of the things that I know many of the freeholders have discussed over the years that we'll continue to look at. So that's basically, I wanted to provide you an overall baseline view of where we are today, what our real estate holdings are, where our lease properties are, and more importantly, what we're doing with one of our technical initiatives in order to make sure we incorporate this in using our GIS platform that allows us to really to continue to analyze this and make information valuable to us, so at any point in time and instantaneously as things change, we can reflect that in that asset management tool. And that's something hopefully that we will move forward and have implemented by the end of 2011.
So I guess the bottom line is, if this, or when this solar project is constructed, there's more than sufficient remaining space available to accommodate if we make that decision to construct.
And I think as the board makes a policy decision on what to do, there is available space, looking at what facilities we currently lease today, and if we were required to go into an owned arrangement, yes.
Okay. Any questions?
Just a couple. First of all, thank you. I appreciate you, reporting back on us. It's, as you know, I've been asking for a while, and I think it's great that we're making some first strides towards it. And as you said, I've certainly been the one advocating that I think that the real estate that we have out on Route 130 at the intersection, which will ultimately be traffic lit, is ideal for retail opportunity to create revenue for the county. We're looking at probably $500,000 or more a year just on the two corners. Candidly, it's something that I think we should have been pursuing for the last couple of years. We've lost that opportunity, but we should be doing that actively. The only thing, and this is a good start, but I still think that we need to do a master plan. And I'll tell you why, John, because this is a kind of a pure approach, and it's a great start. And again, I thank you for putting the effort in. But there's things that are not factored in here: circulation patterns, roadways, detention, setbacks, side yards. So when you start to look at that, the 5 acres, in fact, could grow substantially. Now, it's probably still going to fall under what the usable area is out there, but I just think that we should simultaneously, as we're pursuing this, and I think it's just something we really need to have, we need a blueprint that really shows what's out there and what the potential is to be able to locate different types of facilities out there. And again, nothing that, I mean, it's a great start, I appreciate it, but I think we should simultaneously, and we've talked about it now for a long time, but I think now is obviously the time, see how we would do the layout. Because again, when you start looking at traffic and circulation, roadways, this starts to change a little bit, and we should just have, I think, a better idea. That's all I'm suggesting.
And again, that's the reason why when you look at the assumption and how it was built, if you assumed a one-story building handling approximately 93,000 square foot of space. So taking that into account, if you went up and built 3 or 4 stories, then obviously that would take into account the necessary surrounding requirements. But as we move forward, I think that's what we have to aggressively pursue, not only to drive recurring revenue, but obviously to drive what we futurely do with that piece of property.
Great.
Thank you.
It's a great start. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Kelso. Resolutions to be amended.
There are none.
Resolutions to be added.
Yes, we have 2 resolutions proposed to be added. The first would be to authorize execution of an agreement with St. George Greek Orthodox Church, Piscataway, New Jersey, regarding use of a portion of Johnson Park for overflow parking for the 38th Annual Greek Festival on May 13, 14, and 15, 2011.
Okay, I need a motion to...
Motion to add 756.
Second.
Motion by Freeholder Tamaro, seconded by Freeholder Barrett Belmonte. Roll call, please.
Freeholder Barrett Belmonte.
Yes.
Freeholder Delina.
Yes.
Freeholder Polos.
Yes.
Freeholder Tamaro.
Yes.
Freeholder Director Rafano.
Yes.
And that will be 11-756. The second resolution arises out of the direction given by the board on Monday evening with regard to the solar program, and that would be to authorize an analysis of the engineering and financial feasibility of a potential pooled solar energy savings program for certain remote county facilities and facilities of participating local government entities within the county, and the undertaking of certain actions necessary in connection therewith.
I need a motion to add that to the agenda.
I'll make a motion to add 757.
Second.
Okay, motion by Freeholder Tamaro, seconded by Freeholder Barrett Belmonte. Roll call, please.
Freeholder Barrett Belmonte.
Yes.
Freeholder Delina. Freeholder Polos.
Yes.
Freeholder Tamaro.
Yes.
Freeholder Director Rafano.
Yes.
And that is added as 11-757.
Okay, resolutions to be held.
There are none.
Resolutions to be voided.
There are none.
Okay, at this point in time, I now turn the meeting over to the public for public discussion on resolution items only, resolutions that are listed on the agenda. Mr. Stewart?
Richard Stewart, New Brunswick. Page 5. we have a number of 740, 741, 742, well, 741 and 40 and 41 are appropriations for musical groups. Are these, is this money obtained from anywhere other than the taxpayers? I mean, is this grant money from some outside source?
It's from the taxpayers, from the budget.
I just hope that it, and incidentally, what does this money actually go to? Does it go to the people paying, like, in effect, per hour to play, or does it go for instruments?
It's paid to, like, for example, 110740, it goes to Concerts by the Bay, and they use that money to pay for the performers,
Freehold Director, can I interrupt? That comes through the parks budget. I explained to Mr. Thing about the money coming from, that's been given on for the last 20 years. We have, years back, people have different concerts, like the Society of My Railroad, and also from Perth Amboy, they have a concert every Sunday, Jane, right? Yes. So that's really entertaining the county people, and the money's spent well, because we always appropriate to make sure that the money's there, and the money is going to be there for the people of the Middlesex County, for their different concerts. These are organizations that collect money to try to survive, and they play. If you ever want to go down, ask Jane Brady, she'll take you down to the concert, Perth Amboy by the waterfront. I hope you find it. But like I said, it's really a nice concert. You really you'll enjoy it. You'll feel the sea breeze, and you'll see the great musicians down there that play in Perth Amboy.
I'm not.
Did I answer your question?
No.
Well, what do you want to know?
I want to know why. Yeah, do we have so much money that we can afford to pay for entertainment? Not. Are these groups so hard up? Why can't they support themselves, or why can't the people coming there?
They do, because I believe the concerts charge an admission fee, and they use that to defray the costs. Not that one?
No.
Okay. But to answer your question, it's less than what they've asked for. And year in, year out, they always ask for more, and is less than what they've asked for. But you have to understand, at least the freeholders feel it's important that people have entertainment. And this is part of what we believe our obligation is to provide recreation and entertainment for our citizens.
And as long as you have money for that and everything else that's more important, to my mind.
Well, that may be your opinion.
Yes, yes. And also number 42, 742, we're spending $20,000 on athletic conference, promotion of interscholastic sports programs for the high schools. I just wonder, in a tight budget, whether that is something, whether that's a good use of 20, as though you had nothing else to spend it on. That's what comes to my mind. I hope that you look at it. And the fact that, as Pete says, you know, you've been doing it for years, there are times when we were more flush, or at least we thought we were more flush with cash. The fact that you've been misspending money doesn't make it right. I want to come to the next page, page 6, 747. This again is that automated license plate recognition system. I raised the point before, and I don't read every.
Time.
Thank you, Mr.
Okay,
Stewart.
I'll bring it up at the next point here.
Anybody else from the public?
Move to close the public portion.
Motion by Freeholder Tamaro,
Second.
second by Freeholder Barrett Belmonte. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Does any freeholder have any resolution that they wish to remove from the consent agenda and vote on separately?
I guess I'll remove the solar one so we can talk about it.
Anybody?
That's 11,757.
Yeah, I got that. Okay. Mr. Kelso?
Yes, Freeholder Director, a motion would be in order then to adopt the consent agenda consisting of resolution numbers 11-719 through 11-753 and 11-756 and 11-757, which were tonight's add-ons, excluding resolutions 11-743 and 11-744, which were previously voted upon, and excluding resolution 11-757 to be voted upon separately.
Make a motion?
I make a motion to adopt the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion by Freeholder Tamaro, seconded by Freeholder Barrett Belmonte. Roll call.
Freeholder Barrett Belmonte,
Yes.
Freeholder Delina, Freeholder Polos,
Yes.
Freeholder Tamaro.
Yes.
Freeholder Director Rafano.
Yes.
And now it would be appropriate to consider resolution 11-757.
I make that motion.
Second.
A motion by Freeholder Tamaro, seconded by Freeholder Barrett Belmonte. Discussion?
Yeah, I just want to, when we spoke about it on Monday, I know we had some disagreement as to what we should be doing and how we should be doing it. So before I guess I comment or question, I want to understand exactly what the resolution calls for, because I don't have a copy of it. So what are we adopting?
I thought you said you had a copy of it.
No, I only have a copy of the add-on list.
It's in the, when the email it's sent out, it was in the email, but it was only done today, so you may not have seen it.
Oh, that's probably why.
Yeah,
I wasn't in the office today.
Okay. Well, if the board would like, I could read the resolution into the record, because otherwise I don't have copies to hand out to everyone. We could do that. It'll take a little time, but
Well, I think the essence of it, the issues I'm concerned about is what exactly are we authorizing Dave to do? The other day, the director indicated that there'd be costs involved to the towns. Some of us didn't agree with that. So I'm trying to understand exactly the salient
understand.
elements. I don't need to hear the whole resolution.
I think it would be helpful if I read to take it, not the recital portion of the resolutions, but to the heart of several sections, which I think Freeholder Polis is asking about, and that shortens it up. But I think in order to understand it, let me read it, and then we can try to interpret it, if you will, because it's a little complicated, but we can answer the questions for you. First of all, the board is determining to immediately undertake the Phase 3 solar analysis. And second, the board is further determining to include in the Phase 3 solar analysis any county local government entity, which would be other towns and other public entities outside of county entities, that A, desire to participate in such analysis, and B, agree to the financial funding commitment, which is a precondition to inclusion in the Phase 3 solar analysis. Such financial funding commitment is as follows. A, to the extent that a county local government entity agrees to participate in the Phase 3 solar analysis, but such analysis shows that it is not feasible to participate in the county and local government entity pooled solar project, such county local government entity shall be responsible to pay for 50% of its allocable share of the cost of the Phase 3 solar analysis. So carrying forward what the direction was on Monday evening, the analysis is done and it's determined that it's not feasible. The county is paying 50% of that analysis. The town is being expected to pay 50% of that analysis. B, to the extent that a county local government entity agrees to participate in the Phase 3 solar analysis and such analysis shows that it is feasible to participate in the county and local government entity pooled solar project, such county local government entity shall be responsible to pay 100% of its allocable share of the cost of the Phase 3 solar analysis. And that's, the result of that is because it then will be reimbursable to them through the PPA cost associated with generating the power. C, to the extent that a county local government entity agrees to participate in the Phase 3 solar analysis and also ultimately determines to participate in the proposed county and local government entity pooled solar project, and such county and local entity pooled solar project is undertaken and closed, and such county local entity shall be responsible to pay for 100% of its allocable share of the total cost of undertaking the county and local government entity pooled solar project, and this includes the costs for the analysis, which cost shall be paid via netting against the electricity savings generated via participation in the county and local government entity pooled solar project. The sum total of that means that to the extent that the analysis shows that it's feasible and the project moves forward and is closed, all of the costs associated with the analysis and the design and legal costs are reimbursable to the town, but the intent here is the town's obligated, but they're reimbursed through the PPA reimbursement. And then finally, D, to the extent that a county local government entity agrees to participate in the Phase 3 solar analysis and also ultimately determines to participate in the proposed county and local government entity pooled solar project, and such county and local government entity pooled solar project is attempted to be undertaken but not closed, such county local government entity shall be responsible to pay 100% of its allocable share of the total cost of attempting to undertake the county and local government entity pooled solar project. Again, the intent is there is a feasibility analysis that determines that it's feasible. The project is undertaken, and therefore design costs are assumed, and design and legal cost, but there is no closing, and that could be any variety of reasons. The bids could come in and they show there's no savings. The local entity may determine even if there's savings, they're marginal, or they just determine that they changed their mind, they don't want to participate in a project. Under those circumstances, the local entity is responsible for the cost, 100% of the cost of the study, as well as the design cost. So we broke it down so that there's no misunderstanding as to the expectations here. I think the bottom line here is that to the extent that there is a feasible project and costs are then committed and it closes, all of that, 100% of that's reimbursable to the town under any circumstances. The real issue here, I think, in the direction that we received Monday evening is initially when there's a feasibility study and the feasibility shows there's no feasibility, the town pays 50%, the county's funding 50% of that. The back end, the issue for the town that can arise is if there are design costs that are incurred because it was initially feasible, but for a variety of reasons the project doesn't occur, the town's responsible for those design costs. And that's the sum total of what's in here.
Real quickly before Jim gets into the questioning, what skin does the town have in the beginning?
In the beginning, they are responsible for 50%.
And before we go forward,
of the analysis,
they have, okay.
Yes. But again, if the analysis shows there's a feasible project and the project closed, they're getting reimbursed 100% of that. Okay. Correct.
I want to make sure, because we have some towns that love us to do studies, and then we get stuck with the study and then nothing moves forward.
I think realistically, for the most part, the feasibility study costs are not that significant.
Right.
What you're going to find is the design costs, when you get to the next phase, is where most of the cost is.
Any questions?
Yeah, a couple. And a couple recommendations. First of all, when we spoke about the feasibility study, and I think we were able to boil it down the other day to exactly what the feasibility study is, and I think just to kind of sum it back up, we essentially want to be able to locate a parcel of land or a parking area that is unencumbered by trees or shaded in any way, that's contiguous, if not on the same property with, that's contiguous to a municipal or school or other type of municipal use. Essentially, that's the sum and substance of what the feasibility study is. In addition to that, it's an analysis of the utility bills, which is not really an analysis, it's really just a compilation and averaging. And those utility bills are readily available because, as I mentioned to you, we were able to get that data from the municipalities when we put together our energy buying consortium, which is saving our towns several $100,000 this year alone. Couple things. Number one, I don't think that we should be asking the towns for the money up front. They haven't budgeted for it. Time is of the essence. They're strapped. They're small. We have the cash. Clearly, we spend on a lot of things. And we should be able to help these communities and be able to recoup that money from the utility just like we're doing it with the county. If for some reason we do the feasibility study and the town decides to opt out, I have no problem with then telling them, you pay the freight. But I think we should be putting the dollars up front. We indicated the other night that we're able to find $1 million to fund our engineer and attorney who are going to be doing our work. The director said very clearly if we had to find $1.5 million to do it, we would have done that too, because this is a good initiative, and I agree with him. So we know that the money is there in old bonds and in dollars that we could utilize. Also tonight, I mean, I don't know, these things, maybe it was fortuitous that FEMA notified us today and gave us another $550,000 that we didn't expect to have. So we have a lot more cash today than we did when we spoke on Monday, and clearly have the ability to be able to fund the cost of these minor feasibility studies. That's point one. Point two.
Could I just respond to one thing? Because I want to make it clear. What we indicate as to that feasibility study is that they're responsible to pay it. We didn't necessarily say in here that they have to pay it up front. It could essentially be a reimbursable.
Well, that was the issue on Monday. But that's the crux of the matter. On Monday, the director and others, by consensus, indicated that they wanted them to pay it up front. I'm arguing the opposite, so I don't want to get into a back and forth on it with you. Second point is, with respect to engineering, and again, please understand where I'm coming from. I'm coming from the vantage point of having been a mayor of a small town that was struggling to find out how we could afford to do things. And I think the county, with a $420 million budget, should be bending over backwards to try to figure out how we can help the towns rather than sitting here and trying to put hurdles up. So I come from that vantage point, and I don't think anybody's necessarily trying to make this difficult, but by virtue of the implementation of this program, you're making it difficult. And that may not be your intent, but trust me, as a former mayor, I can tell you it would be difficult to find money to do what we're asking them to do. The second thing is, and I'm sure Dave Samuels will agree, there's no magic to doing the feasibility study. Any engineer can. We should at least afford them the option to have their own municipal engineer do the feasibility study. Dave can provide them the parameters. They could save the cost of having to do or expend those dollars through our people and determine whether or not it's at least feasible. We can at least add that in as an option. Thirdly, when we get to the actual implementation costs, the way I understand it, you've indicated that, again, they're going to have to come up with the soft costs, engineering and design and attorney fees, in order to actually proceed with it. Now, this was the crux of the matter on Monday. That's the money that we need to be fronting. These communities don't have the dollars to do that. There is a significant savings here. We're talking 80% off of the 12.5 cents that Dave quoted the other day. Although I can tell you right now, on our fixed rate through our energy aggregation program, we're actually at 9.3 cents. So the numbers come down, but still, 2.5 cents a kilowatt hour, which is what we'd be offering through this program, is about 70% savings off of the 9.3. That's a huge savings for a town. And I still argue for the fact that we should be working simultaneously and trying to see if we can bundle this together. I indicated to you that on Friday, because when I spoke to the engineer last week, the indication was, and again, I wasn't involved with a lot of the notification, there were only a couple of towns supposedly who were interested. I sent notification out to the towns, as I told you, on Friday. I have 9 communities that have already contacted me: South Plainfield, Carteret, Helmetta, Edison Township, North Brunswick, Piscataway, Perth Amboy, Plainsboro, South Amboy, and the Middlesex Regional Educational Services Commission are all interested in participating. They're anxious. They just want to know what they need to do. They've got the data ready. We've told them that they need to get site plans. They need to pull together their utility bills, most of which we already have. Bottom line is I haven't worked on this full-time as some of you have over the last few months, but in 72 hours, we have 9 towns that want to participate in the largest school district through the Ed Services Commission. So what I'm suggesting to you, members of the board, respectfully, is let's not separate and bifurcate this issue. Let's run them on parallel tracks. If, through the efforts of Dave or whoever else we may need to be bringing in, if there's not enough staff in his department, although I'm sure Dave does have enough people at CME, let's do the immediate outreach to these communities, bring them on board, and bundle this together to see if this makes sense going forward. We don't want to lose the opportunity of the 30% federal grant. If we run it on separate tracks, we may run into that situation. I don't know the level of importance it's going to get, and I think that we need to bring this together. At the end of the day, whether we're at 2.5 cents or 3.5 cents on a blended rate with the communities participating, we're going to save a lot of money. But there isn't anybody in this room, including Dave, who can disagree with me that any one of these communities going out to do this on their own is not going to have a 70% savings off of their utility bills. Any PPA going into any small community doing a ground installation or a canopy on a parking lot, at best is going to do a 30% discount, maybe 35%. And that's going to only be if they have a certain size, 50 megawatt, 50 kilowatt or larger. So we need to use our buying power, and I just think that I don't understand candidly what the resistance and reluctance is to do it. The comment the other day was we're going to lose the chance if we don't do this fast enough, the rates might go up. Our engineer indicated that. I don't agree, but that's a possibility. And if we agree with that as a possibility, then we should be working twice as hard to get our communities involved because they're going to run the same risk. It was then indicated that if we didn't move quickly enough, we would lose the federal grant. Well, if we don't get them on board, the towns lose the federal grant and the school districts. Realize something. These towns, unlike us, because we did a cap waiver for ourselves, these towns had to fall within a 2% cap. School districts had to lay off teachers. Municipalities had to lay off policemen and firemen because they couldn't afford to pay their bills. So we should really be extending ourselves, I believe, and trying to really see if we can make this thing happen in quick and short order rather than separating and parsing it out into two events. If at the end of the day that happens because we're not able to pull it together, even though we've given it our best effort, well, so be it. But I just feel very uncomfortable sitting here kind of making it the second-class citizen when we can make this move with the same speed and dispatch and participate in the same level of buying power that we have with our county initiative. So that's my thought.
I'd like to say a couple things before I ask Dave Samuel and Tony Pinella to say a few words about it. First of all, I have in front of me a folder that letters date back to 2009 in efforts to us to attract and encourage our municipalities to participate in this program. 4 responded, 1 withdrew, other one never sent the information, and 2, I'm not sure, it was just,
2
we're interested. And that was it from 2009. And I have no problem with trying to encourage them a second time, which is what we're doing, and I think we're doing it pretty quickly, and I think we're making it, it's something that they may want to explore in more detail. But what we have to do is we have to protect the county of Middlesex. I believe that since the municipalities, it's going to benefit the municipalities, why should the county of Middlesex take on the engineering responsibility, which may run $100,000 or more? If an administration then pulls the plug on a project or decides it's not feasible, then that's money we incur. We'll have to go after the municipality to collect the money. Okay, we have a difficult economic time. Also, our budget, we are subject to a cap also. We had to cut some $10 million to make it just to cap here in Middlesex County. We lost $30 million in revenue in the last 5 years. So we're struggling too. And what we're saying by saying to the town initially to put in half of the assessment cost, which is, I believe it would translate to about $500 a building that they looked at, was to make sure that they are committed to the project also. Phil Tamara said it correctly. The last thing we want is all the towns doing it because we're paying for it, and the end result is maybe have just a handful participate. This is getting them involved, getting them committed to the project early on. That's the sole purpose of it. We cannot continue as a county to 100% fund everything because we have a larger budget. We have our own responsibility to our county taxpayers to do things responsibly, and at the same time encourage our municipalities to partner. Our experts, Tony Pinella and also Dave Samuel, have recommended to us, based upon them, I don't know how many of these PPAs you guys have done, that we should move on phase 2 because they're concerned that we're not going to be able to keep that rate or have that rate. And I don't think you can even suggest to that the towns, if they join us, that rate's going to stay the same. We don't know yet. With regard to the municipalities, we cannot afford to impact our rate that we went out based upon the lack of interest early on from the municipalities, and based upon our work. It's going to benefit the county to the tune of millions of dollars over the next 15 years in utility costs. And we don't want to take that risk. With regard to FEMA money is reimbursement for overtime costs and expenses that we've incurred in a storm. It's not new additional revenue or money that we can use to dole out. So you have to compare apples to oranges. Dave, will you please give us an overview and what your opinion is?
Director, before Dave, as he's coming up, just one comment, though. I certainly indicated that I'm all in favor that if the town makes the decision to pull out of this, they should be responsible for the costs that we've committed, clearly. But what needs to be understood is that we're only fronting the dollars, and that the dollars are reimbursable back to us through the entity that ultimately receives the contract. I agree with you. If a town makes a decision at any point during the process that they just summarily decide to not participate, we would have an agreement with them that they would be responsible to reimburse the county for that cost. Now, this county has certainly in the past done those types of agreements where we have fronted dollars and received payments back from communities. So that's not foreign to how we operate with our towns, and certainly we could apply the same judicious parameters here to ensure that the county was protected. But the bottom line is that at the end of the day, through our capital funds and dollars, we have sufficient dollars to be able to provide the funding up front to expedite the application process, to expedite the efficiency of it. I understand about the letters in 2009, but I will tell you this, and again, having been a small town mayor, it's one thing to send a letter out to a community and say, we might do a PPA, and I don't know how many PPAs, I don't know how many Dave has done, but I've been involved in a number of them over the last 5 years, and what I can tell you is that it's one thing to send out a letter to a community and tell them that you have the potential of maybe saving some money. It's another thing if you talk to them in hard numbers, much like you presented to us the other day. And I have to be candid. If you had come to us the other day and said, maybe we could do a PPA, it's going to cost you $1 million in professional fees, maybe we're going to save some money, I don't know how many people would have just jumped on board with that. It was different when you came and said, we know or we feel that we can get you 2.5 cents to 3.5 cents, which is an 80% savings off of current rates. Would you spend $1 million to do that? That's a little bit of a different set of parameters. So I think that's why everybody was so anxious. So maybe it's the new information that has sparked the interest of these communities. But I also think it's the opportunity, or the potential opportunity, would have to be with board approval, to fund the upfront costs for these communities. They're going to be able to make them come on board. And if we can do that, and I'll offer them that opportunity, these little school districts, many of which we all represent up here, are going to be able to have a very good benefit, and something that I think the county is responsible for, notwithstanding everything else that the director mentioned about our costs and so forth. It seems that when we need to do something, we find the money. We just found the $1 million to fund this, which wasn't in the budget. So we have abilities to do things, and I think we're all aware of that. It's a matter of whether it's a priority for us to do it. Dave?
Let me just respond quickly to that. First of all, that we found $1 million because the end run, we're going to save, I believe, approximately $12 million anticipated savings in terms of our utility costs. So certainly spending money that we're going to get reimbursed for was certainly a wise thing to do, and we did that by borrowing.
Oh, I agree with you. I think that was a great thing, but we did acknowledge the other day if we needed $1.5 million to make the project work, we would have found that too. Mysteriously, it somehow appears. Go ahead.
Well, just a couple of things. One is, I don't know why we're I'm sorry. I don't know why we're talking about $1 million, because it's not $1 million. I think it's a total of about 800 or so. But the other issue is that with all the words that have been said, I think the major issue, Jim or Freeholder Polos, that you're talking about is whether we go through and bid it as a separate, as just one project, or whether we bid it as two projects, okay? And I've told you at the last meeting, it's my recommendation that if you want to go through and maximize the return to the county, that you need to go through and get the PPA out for the Apple Orchard project as soon as possible, okay? If you go through and wait an extra month and a half beyond that, which is what it's going to go through and take to go through and do a project with all of the municipalities and school boards, and I indicated to you, we have the capacity in the company to staff up, and we actually have the staff available to go through and handle those things, but you're not going to go through and get all of that work done, then report back to this board, and then go through and get authorized to do the designs, okay, on, let's just say that there's going to be 50 more sites. And you cannot expect to hold the price, okay, that we're hoping that we can go through and get if a contractor has to work at a total of maybe 60 locations. 10, I'm saying, on the county side, and it may be more, and 50 for the towns if that happens. And it could be more, because if you're talking about school boards being involved and if you're talking about the towns coming on, I think there's a lot. I think that it's a great project. I think you need to move forward with a project that offers the maximum return that you can to the municipalities, to the school boards, whoever is interested. But if you ask me for my recommendation as to how I think you should proceed, I still think you should proceed a project for Apple Orchard and a separate project for the remaining county facilities. I mean, the county still has all of the other properties that we have to look at in the game in conjunction with this. But that's my recommendation. You guys make the decisions.
And there were two elements, Dave, that and then the funding. I believe that the county should be fronting the dollars and getting the return back on the utility, just like we're doing for Owen project.
Well, I think that
But that's a board decision.
It's your decision, but what I heard was that the towns don't have to come up with the money unless they opt out, okay,
No,
after the study.
That's not the case. That's not what was discussed on Monday. There may be a change of heart, which is great. I'm glad people are changing their view, but on Monday it was specifically indicated that the towns would front the money. If Mr. Kelso's saying tonight that there's been a change in direction, I'm happy for that. We don't need to discuss it any further. If the county's willing to front the dollars for the feasibility study and the implementation, we're done.
What I said was, the resolution allows the flexibility of doing it however the board wishes once we see what the timing is involved. Because number one, the cost of feasibility likely is not that significant, so that there may very well be some of the costs are involved with our consultants who may be prepared to wait a little bit in order to get paid for the feasibility, such that the towns, since they don't have it in their budgets, those that have adopted budgets already, will be able to defer when they're going to reimburse us. However, it's clear from the resolution that they're ultimately responsible for it. And I think that was the point, the directive that I understood from the board, was that the towns needed to at least understand that they had a financial obligation going forward in this feasibility study.
There was never a question about a town having a financial obligation. The question became, it was very clear, was who was going to front the dollars.
Well, I disagree with that, because I recall in a discussion, which I got a directive from the board, that the discussion was whether or not we were funding 100% of that, not whether or not we were just fronting it. So we can go back.
So are you indicating then that we are going to front the dollars?
I didn't say that. I said
Okay.
it's up to the board to determine.
Well, that's what
I've
we're
allowed the resolution, the flexibility, that whether or not the freeholders fund it up front, or whether or not the consultants defer when they get paid.
Right, I
Be done
understand.
any way.
Well, we're not disagreeing. That's what we're trying to decide.
Well, I think we did disagree on Monday, because I thought your point was clear. You wanted the county obligated to pay 100% of that feasibility. And I'm sorry, Freeholder Polis, but that's the way I understood it clearly.
And I absolutely, you don't need to correct me. I remember exactly what I said, Mr.
I wasn't
Kelso.
correcting you. I was clarifying what I understood what you said. I wasn't correcting you in any way.
I absolutely, without a doubt, indicated that the county should front the cost for the feasibility study and for the implementation, because there is a refund to the county when the agreement is signed. And we're doing the same process for this county initiative. Are we not, Dave?
That is correct.
Okay, so
from
I'm
the
just
standpoint of the
applying-
county initiative.
I'm applying the same principles to the municipal implementation that we're doing for the county. We shouldn't treat them any different than we treat ourselves. That's at least my view. No one has to agree with it, but at least that's fundamentally my view. And I also think that we should modify it, which I did not suggest on Monday because I just thought of it tonight, the opportunity for a community to utilize its own engineer to do its own feasibility study within the parameters set by CME, which would be an additional savings for them. That way they can do a go or no-go decision based on their own in-house determination. I'm sure you wouldn't have a problem if a community did its own feasibility study, and at that point they could determine whether or not they want to proceed. They don't have to come up with any money because it's folded into their engineering costs already budgeted. I think it's just something that we should at least offer. That's it. I think you guys can vote. You've heard what I have to say, and there's no reason to belabor it anymore.
The concept of having the municipal engineer do their own feasibility study, what is...
It's really hard for me to comment on that because it would be self-serving, okay? So I really think that Mr. Pinellas...
It's an honest engineer. I appreciate that, Dave.
Let me just make a comment, because
I appreciate your honesty.
I disagree that I think that the township should have some responsibility, and I think paying $500 or $1,000 for a feasibility study will show they're interested in it. And that's not not an awful lot of money for any of the towns in our community. So I would disagree. I think they at least have to initially give us the money for the feasibility study. And that will tell us to move on to the next spot. And there's no way that I will allow, want us not to move our Phase 2 forward and let this feasibility studies from the towns interfere with our moving forward for the solar panels. So I disagree with that. And as far as the towns, and we do this, with engineering all the time, Mr. Reiser will tell you, and I'll tell you, I won't name the town, but I know there's a town that has 5 intersections, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Reiser, that we've done studies for, and we've paid for, and we've not moved forward on those intersections, put lights in. Is that not correct? So, and those are huge dollars. Those are not $500 to $1,000. Those are huge dollars that town didn't come forward with.
Just 1 second, I just want to respond. Freeholder, I don't disagree with some of what you said, except this point. It's not just the $500. Once you get past the feasibility study, which is the easy part, it's then the implementation. Assume that they're willing to proceed. What we're going to do is burden these communities to come up with the $50, $80, or $100,000 or more to be able to actually do the design and engineering part. It could be as little as 25. But if you take a small community like Helmetta or Highland Park or Milltown and tell them to come up with $25,000, they simply don't have it. So that's the reason I'm suggesting we should front those dollars and be reimbursed. And I would be very much in support of an agreement, which doesn't exist with the 4 traffic lights that you're talking about in that community, that if they don't proceed, they reimburse us for the study.
Well,
that wasn't in those resolutions.
Well, I agree with that, too, and I've spoken to Mr. Reiser about that, and this day forward, or those days back, that will happen.
Agreed. I would agree with you there. I would support that 100%.
Mention this real quick, too. They can fund it. The municipalities can fund the
Get the money
project the
back.
same way that we funded it, which was to borrow money on a temporary basis. When we get reimbursed, pay it off. Okay.
There's been a motion and a second.
Okay, roll call.
Freeholder Barrett Belmonte.
Yes.
Freeholder Tamaro.
Yes.
Sorry, Freeholder Polos.
Well, I've stated my case. I'm going to vote yes because I don't want to further damage the communities.
Freeholder Director Rafano.
Yes. Okay, at this point in time, I'd like to open up to the floor, to the public on any matter. Yes, sir.
Yes, my name is Charles Breitwasser. Let me take the mic.
Yeah.
Nancy's here, too. She wants to know.
I'll call.
Hi, my name is Charles Breitwasser. My associate over there, Bob Dombrowski. We're the executive board of Hooked on Fishing, Not on Drugs, New Jersey. Well, all except for our treasurer who couldn't make it tonight. But we are the executive board of Hooked on Fishing, Not on Drugs, New Jersey, which is a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to developing fishing programs in all the schools as a means of drug prevention and getting kids outdoors. And Hooked on Fishing, Not on Drugs is a nationally awarded program. It's available in 13 other states, and educators in those states are reporting better attendance, better test grades, and less incidents with substance abuse. And we want to start it in New Jersey, in the school districts. We'll begin at Middlesex County, and our mission is to do it statewide. So we're coming to you for grant money so we can get the operations going. Do you think you can find $100,000 or something for a worthy mission like this? The educators in the other states report better test grades, better attendance. It's a great program.
My suggestion to you is that you put a request into the board. You can direct it toward me, and we'll take a look at it like we do any organization looking for some type of funding.
Okay, definitely.
Okay.
Freeholder Director, just to add something. This Saturday at Lake Papiani is the fishing derby. So you can stop by. There's probably several hundred families that will be there. You can recruit some members.
Oh, that's cool. Lake Papiani?
In Edison,
Where is that?
it's in Edison by the municipal building.
Is that on 27?
Right off of 27.
Oh, all right. Where the old Edison Museum used to be?
No, she's going to talk on that. That's on Christie Street. We have someone else going to talk on that.
Okay, I'll have to find out further.
It's on 100 Municipal Boulevard in Edison, okay?
Thank you.
Anybody else? Nancy?
Good evening. I'm Nancy Zerby. I'm president of the nonprofit Edison Memorial Tower Corporation, and the museum is still there. I want to reassure you. On behalf of the board, I'm pleased to announce we've made some great progress at the site, including several firsts. The museum is currently undergoing its first major renovation. For the first time, we are developing professional exhibits to interpret the site's incredible Thomas Edison history. And most exciting, something that many of us waited a long time for, the state has recently awarded a contract for the first ever restoration of the Edison Memorial Tower. And this project is just getting underway. All of these accomplishments will be highlighted at our annual meeting, also our first annual meeting, on Wednesday evening, May 18th, 7 o'clock at Edison Town Hall. Each freeholder has an invitation in your packet, and I do have flyers if anyone in the public is interested. We encourage all members of the public to come and join us to learn about these projects, especially the restoration, and also to celebrate the success that we're moving forward. We also will be honoring Congressman Pallone that evening. During our fundraising, he was instrumental in getting us a congressional extension for a fundraising deadline that really made a huge difference for our project. I also want to take this opportunity to thank the freeholders for the many ways that the county has helped us with our site, including funding from your Open Space, Recreation, and Farmland and Historic Preservation Trust Fund. And I'll add to the chorus of thanks this evening to Ralph Albanier. Grant funding from the County Cultural and Heritage Commission, as well as very valuable exhibit design guidance from your director, Anna Ashkenas. Work at the site by the county's Labor Assistance Program and Clean Community Program, with a special thanks to Warden Edmund Chicky and his staff. They've really done a great job at the site. And finally, work by the students of the Middlesex County Academy for Science, Mathematics, and Engineering Technologies for helping us build some new hands-on exhibits that we will be putting into the museum when we reopen. And I want to give a special thanks to Mr. Munns and Mr. Paterno at the Academy. We're very grateful for the county's assistance, and we look forward to continuing to work with you to develop a historic site that everyone in the county can be truly proud of. Thank you.
Nancy, you'll be happy to know that picture that you gave me is hanging in the freeholder director's office.
All right, great, thank you.
There'll be new pictures coming shortly.
Anybody else in the public? Mr. Stewart?
I want to come back again to that problem of the plate recognition system. As I see it, a problem. Have any of the freeholders, have you seen anything? I haven't, so I'm asking, has anyone else been concerned with the plates being readable? Just walking over here tonight, I happened to notice a license plate with the plastic.
I'm sorry, Mr. Stewart, can you...
The plastic cover on it, which ends up usually being yellowish. It's harder to even read them, but to be depending upon some other device to read these plates. And again, I was looking at the plates while I was driving today. The plates that have a license plate frame around them that conceals some of the information on the plate. Sometimes you can't even see the state designation on them. Is anyone else saying anything about this? Have you seen anything? Because I don't read every newspaper and hear every broadcast, so I don't know that.
Are you talking specifically about that resolution?
Yes.
The only thing I will say is, after you mentioned it the last time, I did mention to our law enforcement agencies to take a look at it and see if indeed there's been an issue or other people identifying the same potential concerns. So at the next meeting, we'll be able to get back to you on that as well.
but you are inquiring.
I raised the issue with
Yeah.
them, and
Because to me, it's so obvious. I mean, if you can't see the plate properly, but I don't see that, I haven't seen anything, I haven't seen. And that's not to say that it hasn't been printed somewhere that tells people that you've got to take those, and have policemen telling people you've got to take those frames off and take off those plastic covers, so forth, which are, I think, illegal just without anything else being said about it.
They are.
So you're looking into that. The other thing that I would like to just, in connection with these musical performances that are being provided in other towns, is New Brunswick getting anything free?
Not this week.
Or last week? Or last week? I think that you better take another look. As you see, other people have ideas for how to spend money, and you're trying to say you don't have it, but you have it.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart. Anybody else from the public?
Question for you before we close, Director. I just want to clarify, because I guess we got a little sidetracked. Are we going to allow towns to use their own municipal engineer?
I personally don't really have a problem with that.
It's not in a resolution, but it also doesn't say you can't do it that way, so.
So that means yes?
Yeah.
And then the second question, then, because County Council indicated the resolution isn't written to say exactly which way we do it, because we're going to get asked, are we funding or are we not funding? Is the decision that we're not funding?
I think the expectation is we're funding at least 50% of it.
No,
If the towns can't immediately fund their 50% of the feasibility study, we could work with the consultant to the extent that they could wait for 50%, or if the town wants to make a specific request that they would like to defer the reimbursement, I think we can take it on a town-by-town consideration.
What about the engineering and the soft costs for the implementation? Freeholder?
No, that's, in the resolution, it's clearly that's not in the resolution.
Okay, just want to be clear. Thank
Okay.
you.
Anybody else from the public? Need a motion to close the public discussion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Fielder Tamara, seconded by Fielder Barrett Palante. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Need a motion to adjourn the meeting? Second?
Second.
Motion by Fielder Tamara, seconded by Fielder Barrett Palante. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Meeting adjourned.